You've asked, you've pleaded, you have begged your child to come practice, but they simply refuse to come. What are some of the tools that you can use to help you get started in that practice? This is Adventures in Suzuki Parenting. My name is Jody St. Clair, and I teach violin and Suzuki Early Childhood in Eugene, Oregon. I love to create videos that help parents with their everyday practice, making it easier and more fun. If you have any great tips about how you get started with your practice, I would love to hear them below. Today, I'm going to give you 5 tips on how to get started with your practice. And if you watch all the way to the end of the video, I have a bonus tip for you. The first tip is to make it a routine. When I get a new student and it's a young child, I usually tell that parent that it will be easier if you practice every day. That seems daunting at first, but making that routine is often the most important step as you begin an instrument. It doesn't mean that you'll always stick to the routine, and it doesn't mean that it'll always be easier, but it does mean it will be easier to come back to because you've established what that routine looks like. That routine makes it so that it's not if we're going to practice today, it's that we're going to practice today. There is no question about the practice happening. And that attitude is a huge part of what makes doing it regularly easier. The second tip I have is to use a Kickstart reward. This is a type of small reward that isn't a permanent fixture in your practice. It's something to just get you going. And I had to use this several times with my children when they were especially very young and we were trying to establish that routine. It just made it easier to get going. For both my kids, we used a chocolate chip for each activity that they did. But you're going to have to think about what is going to work best for you and your child. It should be something small, and immediate gratification is really good when your child is young. But if they're a little bit older, it can be something that they're building up to at the end of the practice. The third tip that I have for you today is to set a goal. This especially works for older children, and I would say it should be something that they want to achieve and they should be a part of it. So maybe it's if we've practiced every day this week, we get to go do X. Or it could be a 30-day practice goal, a certain number, and you've just set up a little chart. You can look online and find all sorts of little tracker charts for goals like this that make it just a little bit more fun. But setting that goal and having something in mind, again, it works a little bit like the Kickstart reward, but it isn't quite as immediate gratification. So if your child is really good at setting goals, or maybe that's a skill that you're wanting to work on with your child, that could be a great way to kind of get the routine rolling if you're having a hard time getting started. The fourth tip that I have for you today in getting that practice going is to just start with listening. If you are having a hard time establishing that routine so that practice is not a battle every single time, get your listening going every day. Find a time that you can do that listening, and getting that routine established is often easier. It's passive, it can be on in the background, it can be just a certain time in your day, but it sets up your environment that music is going to be an important part of your household. So getting that listening going can really help change the mentality of the whole family that music is going to be an important part. So important that it's on and everybody gets to listen to it. So my bonus tip for you today is to make sure and talk to your teacher. Your teacher is an excellent resource, and sometimes it can be really hard to admit that it's being difficult, especially if you were having an easier time before and it's all of a sudden gotten difficult. But your teacher knows your child really well, and they're going to have some of the best suggestions to really get your practice started on the right foot. Thank you so much for joining me today. Happy practicing.